You are drowning it like syrup, Jazzman.
Don't let him see it. Stay still. Think about the rice.
Mark Nakamura dragged his index finger across the wooden cutting board, scooping up the gritty residue, then wiped it straight onto Kevin's rice like he was seasoning it.
He did it right in front of the other diners. Not one person said a word.
Kevin lifted the next piece of nigiri. He ate 2 bites, no more, no less, and set his chopsticks down with the precision of a surgeon. He placed them parallel across the plate, a gesture that would be understood in any high-end Tokyo sushiya. The meal is over, and the judgment is final.
Check, please.
When the check arrived, 400, plus tax, Kevin took the pen and wrote a 0 on the tip line. With a single unhurried stroke, "Tonight I learned the wasabi was from a tube." Within minutes, a reply popped up from another forum user. "Tube wasabi. Where? You have my attention."
It's out. Let them wonder who I am.
He turned the watch over. Engraved on the back, Jiro, 2014, 11 years in Tokyo. Kevin Otieno had arrived with nothing but a letter of introduction and the need to be invisible. For 2 years, he washed rice. He learned to feel the temperature through the bowl, to listen to the water run clear. By year 5, he was allowed to make tamago. He failed 300 times. On the 301st, Jiro nodded once. "The rice is everything." J.O. Kevin stared at the watch. In the curve of the crystal, he saw the old man's silhouette, the way Jiro would sharpen his knife without looking, judging by the sound. Back in the hotel, he refreshed the forum. A new reply. "Tube wasabi." Then the rice was probably overcooked. No one here knows real sushi.
They're still blind. They don't know what they're tasting.
By midnight, the thread had been shared to 3 private food industry chat rooms. People who mattered were asking the same question. Who is this diner? The next morning, Kevin stood in front of a raw storefront on the Lower East Side, the name Endo stenciled onto the papered window. A construction worker paused, wiping dust from his hands, and asked, "Why Endo? What does it mean?"
Endo means distant wisteria, my mother's favorite flower. She saved for 10 years so I could one day open a place like this.
He would honor her by building a counter where every piece of rice was done her way. Quietly, perfectly, with nothing to prove.
She'd be proud of this fish. The eye is clear, the gills bright red.
These gaijin, these outsiders, they think they can make sushi? They don't know the rice, the knife, the soul. They're playing dress-up.
He squeezed a handful of rice as he spoke, crushing it into a dense, oily lump, a demonstration he called tradition. Behind him, his own kitchen, was a storm of noise and tension, line cooks ducking his temper, and a tub of fake wasabi sitting open on the prep counter.
He still doesn't know who I am. Good. Let him talk.
2 kitchens, 2 philosophies. One chef was building a reputation on volume and venom. The other was quietly measuring the grain of hinoki wood for his counter. Later that night, Kevin checked his forum inbox. A new message sat at the top from a user named E. Voss. "I am a food critic with the New York Times. I think you were at Nakamura last night. Can we talk?"
A journalist from the Times. Could this be a setup? Mark has friends in every kitchen.
In a newsroom across town, Elena Voss had been tracking Mark for months. Her notes on his violations were spread across the desk.
But the byline. I remember her piece on the tuna fraud last year. She's legitimate.
He recalled the article, the one that exposed a chain passing off escolar as white tuna. She had done her homework.
Okay, I'll meet her. But I'll keep my secrets close until I know who she really is.
"I'll meet you. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. Cafe Gatan."
Sent. If she's real, this could change everything. If not, I'll know by the first question she asks.
Across the city, Elena closed her laptop. The anonymous diner had agreed. Her case against Mark Nakamura was about to get a voice. The next morning at Cafe Gitan, Kevin arrived early, ordered a pot of green tea, and sat facing the door. Elena walked in precisely at 10, a thick leather folder under her arm.
Mr. Otieno, I am Elena Voss. Thank you for coming.
She sat, opened the folder, and spread out photographs. Mark's prep station with a cracked cutting board, a bucket of slimy wasabi paste, and receipts showing cheap substitute fish.
You've been thorough.
6 months of work. I have sources, but nobody who can explain why it matters. Your post was the first tip that sounded like a pro.
She's sharp. She'll figure me out if I am not careful.
I need someone who knows real sushi inside and out. Are you that person?
I'll help. But my name stays out of this. No photo, no credit.
Elena studied his face for a long moment. Something about the way he said inside and out made her pause. She agreed to his terms, but in her notebook she wrote, "Source knows techniques only an itame would know. Investigate."
Look at the rice. It's compressed into a gluey paste. Proper sherry feels alive. Each grain separate, melting at body temperature.
Elena wrote quickly. Kevin wasn't just describing a bad texture. He was reciting the internal standard of a master.
And the tuna. It's aged wrong. Those frayed edges mean it was frozen. Thawed, then refrozen. A real itame controls humidity, not just temperature.
You sound like someone who's been behind a counter, not just over one.
I pay attention. Details matter. When you care about what you eat.
His hand drifted to his watch, adjusting the clasp. Elena's eyes followed. A Grand Seiko, Japanese, worn like it had seen 100 shifts.
She's seen the watch. It's too specific for a food tourist. I need to steer this back. The wasabi isn't just from a tube. It's dyed to stay vibrant. Real wasabi fades in 15 minutes after grating.
Your watch, unusual choice. You've spent significant time in Japan, haven't you?
Kevin deflected with a short answer, but Elena didn't press. She underlined her earlier note. Itamae, possibly trained in Tokyo. That evening, a new video hit the feeds. A popular food blogger raving about Nakamura, calling it the best omakase in New York. The blogger, all smiles and superlatives, posted from the counter without a hint of the tube, wasabi, or the grit on the rice.
Finally, someone who gets it. Taste, not politics.
An hour later, a forum user replied to Kevin's thread. The wasabi claim is a lie. I dined there tonight. Perfect.
They're already shutting it down. If she publishes now, they'll say I am a fraud.
He typed a single line in reply. I said what I saw. Back in his kitchen, Mark shared the blogger's review on his own feed, captioning it, "Real chefs let the food speak." Kevin was staring at the thread when Elena's name lit up his phone.
Don't let them rattle you. I've compiled enough evidence to blow this open. I believe you.
Then finish the article. I'll hold up my end.
The next morning, Kevin walked into the Endo construction site to find his lead investor waiting, arms crossed, a bank statement in his hand. The investor pointed to a line of red ink and said, "Stick to the plan, Kevin. No drama. Delay the opening."
He thinks I am building a business on shortcuts. He doesn't know what I am building.
Jiro's voice echoed in his memory. The customer is not always right, but the rice is. An hour later, at a discreet cafe table, Elena leaned forward, her expression unreadable.
Kevin, who are you really? I can't publish a faceless tip. The article needs a voice.
If I give her my name, Endo is at risk before it even opens. But if I stay silent, Mark wins. Give me 2 days. I'll give you more than a voice.
Elena studied him, then nodded slowly. She'd waited months. 2 more days wouldn't break her. Kevin walked back to the construction site alone. In the dust, he could almost feel the weight of the hinoki counter, waiting for its first grain of rice. That night, Kevin couldn't sleep. He held the watch, the engraving catching the faint light from the street. In a dream, he was back at Tsukiji. At dawn, the air thick with the smell of the sea and fresh-caught tuna. He saw himself younger, behind the counter of Sukiyabashi Jiro, hands trembling as he shaped his 300th tamago. Jiro watched without expression. When Kevin's trembling hands finally produced a perfect golden block, the old man gave the smallest nod. Kevin woke with a start, his chest heaving. In the dark, he whispered the words on the paper. The rice is everything.
No more silence, no more hiding. 11 years of training, and I've been invisible for long enough.
He reached for his phone, the cold screen light casting sharp shadows across his tired face, and typed a message he should have sent years ago. Meet me at the fish market tomorrow, 5 a.m. I'll tell you everything.
For Mama. For every time they said no, from that first restaurant in Brooklyn to Mark Nakamura's counter.
He placed the watch on the nightstand, its ticking like a quiet promise he intended to keep. Before dawn, Kevin stood at the Fulton Fish Market, a weathered photograph resting in his palm. Elena arrived, notebook under her arm. The docks smelled of ice and brine.
This is from my last week at Sukiyabashi Jiro. I apprenticed there for 11 years.
Elena stared at the image, a younger Kevin, smiling beside a short, stooped man in a white cap.
Oh my God. You are one of the three. The only Americans ever accepted there.
And Mark Nakamura spat on my food and called me Jazzman. He had no idea who he was insulting.
Her phone rang, the Times editor. His voice was tight. Nakamura's lawyer sent a cease and desist. They're threatening to sue.
Then we bleep his name and publish anyway. This story is too big to kill.
If this backfires, Endo is dead before it starts, but she is willing to fight.
Elena ended the call, her jaw set. She had a draft to file before noon, and she would not be quiet. Later that afternoon, Elena leaned across the cluttered newsroom desk, her laptop screen tilted toward Kevin, a headline glowing in bold type she'd been refining for hours.
I am calling it The Wasabi Whistleblower. A diner's revenge reveals Sushi's dirty secrets. What do you think, Kevin?
Revenge. That's not why I did this, but the story needs teeth, and she's given it fangs. Just a diner's revenge. And use my photo. Let them see a black face knowing more about sushi than them.
Are you sure, Kevin? Once your face is out there, there's no taking it back.
I've been invisible long enough.
Elena nodded and typed the final paragraph, her fingers striking the keys with finality. When she hit send, a small handful of colleagues paused to applaud. The Sunday Review layout glowed on her screen. Kevin's photograph, the Grand Seiko watch, and the bold headline, The Wasabi Whistleblower. Kevin extended his hand across the desk. Elena shook it. The deal sealed without a contract, only trust. The article was locked for Sunday. The presses in Queens began their quiet thunder. By Saturday evening, the construction dust had settled. Kevin pushed open the door to Endo and stepped into silence. The Hinoki counter ran the length of the room, pale as sand, smooth as glass under his fingers.
She saved for 10 years to give me this dream. I wish she could see it.
From his coat, he drew a single sprig of false wisteria, the flower his mother loved, and laid it on the fresh wood.
This is for you, Mama. For every time they said no from that first Brooklyn restaurant to Mark Nakamura's counter.
He glanced at his watch. It was 2 minutes fast. He pulled the crown and set it precisely, a ritual Jiro had insisted upon.
Tomorrow, the world will know my face, but tonight, this place is only mine.
In the quiet, he could almost hear Jiro's voice. The rice is everything. But tonight, it was the silence.
I've waited 11 years. One more night is nothing.
He killed the lights and pulled the door shut, the lock clicking into place like a promise. Early Sunday morning, before the sun touched the Lower East Side, Kevin walked to a corner newsstand. The vendor was still stacking the bundles. He paid without a word, and unfolded the paper, his hands steady, but his pulse a slow drum in his ears. The photograph filled the top of the food section, his own face, the Grand Seiko watch, and the headline, "The Wasabi Whistleblower. A diner's revenge reveals Sushi's dirty secrets."
It's real. After 11 years, the world will see.
Across the Hudson, in a high-rise apartment, Mark Nakamura's phone began to vibrate. 3 calls, then 4, each with the same urgent rhythm. His wife's voice cut through his sleep. "Mark, wake up. Something's in the Times." He squinted at the tablet she thrust into his hands. The article was already open, the photograph impossible to miss.
The customer from last week. Number, he's one of them. Jiro's student.
His eyes tracked down the column. Tube wasabi, cutting board grit, the soy sauce remark. His hands began to shake. He set the tablet down as if it were burning. Outside, the line for his restaurant was already forming, but the phone on the nightstand kept ringing, each tone a small death. Within the hour, Mark went live on Instagram, his face flushed and his finger stabbing at the camera lens.
This is a hit job by a failed chef. A nobody trying to destroy me. I will sue the New York Times.
Within minutes, the hashtag WasabiGate was trending. Comments flooded in, some mocking, some calling for a boycott.
He's doing exactly what we expected. The louder he screams, the more they'll look.
Food insiders dug up Kevin's original forum post. Now it had thousands of views and a new reply. "We know who you are now." A former Jiro apprentice in Tokyo tweeted, "I remember Kevin. His tamago was legendary." This was a coward's attack. The post was shared by a Michelin inspector in Europe with a single word, "Noted."
It's spreading faster than we planned. I might have to give that interview after all.
Elena texted him. "The editor says we stand by it. No retraction. This is now the top story on the Times site." Kevin looked at his watch. The second hand swept past the Jiro engraving. Outside, the city was waking up to a different kind of food fight. By noon on Sunday, the Michelin Guide's official account posted a statement. "We are aware of the New York Times report regarding Nakamura. An emergency review has been opened."
They're actually considering pulling his star. This is moving beyond anything I hoped.
His phone rang. The lead investor's voice was tight with anger and fear. "Kevin, my partners are spooked. A legal fight with Nakamura could drag Endo into the mud. We might need to delay until this blows over."
Delay? We're 6 weeks from opening. Every day we wait costs us credibility, costs us momentum.
The investor replied that credibility required staying out of scandals, not fueling them.
He doesn't understand. This isn't a scandal. It's a correction. If I back down now, I lose everything. Give me until Tuesday. I'll give an interview that settles the markets. Endo will open, and it will be legendary.
There was a long pause. Then the investor said, "Tuesday, not a day later. Prove it." He stared at the watch. Time was the only currency these people understood, and his was slipping away. On Tuesday morning, Kevin walked into the studio of The Curious Palate, the food podcast that had broken the Escolar fraud 2 years earlier. He put on the headphones, calm as if he were preparing his knife.
Why didn't I confront him? Because silence in a sushiya is the oldest judgment. The rice speaks. My silence was the review he deserved.
The host was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "That is the most respectful insult I have ever heard." A caller from Tokyo phoned in, his voice thick with emotion. "I remember you at Sukiyabashi, Jiro. You brought honor to the counter."
They remember. All those years of silence, and they remember me.
Another caller, a black culinary student, said she had been told there was no place for her in sushi. Then she said, "Now I know there is." By the end of the hour, the station's phone lines were jammed, and the hashtag number Kevin Otieno was trending above number WasabiGate. After the show, Kevin's phone buzzed. The investor had sent a text, "Okay, we open on schedule." Endo stays.
The tide has turned. Now, let them see what real sushi looks like.
3 days after the podcast, the Michelin Guide released a single line online. Nakamura has been removed from the New York selection. Kevin heard the news while laying out his yanagiba on the hinoki counter, the blade catching the afternoon light. Across town, Nakamura's counter sat nearly empty. Reservations had evaporated, and the phone had stopped ringing. Mark sat alone at his own counter, scrolling the official statement. Ethical concerns and quality standards.
No need to watch his downfall. The rice speaks, and it has said enough.
He turned his attention to the first shipment of fresh wasabi root, grating it against a sharkskin board until the paste glowed pale green. Behind him, the construction workers were gone. Only the scent of hinoki and the quiet promise of what was to come.
6 weeks. Every grain of rice I place here will be an answer to that night.
He picked up his phone and sent a single message to Elena. It's over. Now the real work begins. The hinoki wood was cool under his fingertips. It was ready. So was he. Opening night at Endo, and the Lower East Side had never seen a line like this. Photographers waited, the street packed with neighbors and critics alike. The air felt electric. Inside, 8 seats at the hinoki counter were full. Every guest silent as Kevin worked, his hands moving with the precision of a master who had waited 11 years for this moment.
Perfect. The temperature, the slice, the shape. Now let them taste.
The first guest took a bite, and his eyes widened. He set down his chopsticks, exhaled, and said, "This is Tokyo." The plate in front of him held the rest of the omakase, each piece glistening like a jewel. He was still lost in the first bite, his chopsticks untouched, his eyes glistening.
To Kevin, who let the rice speak.
To Jiro, who taught me that the rice is everything, and to everyone who said I didn't belong here.
The next morning, the New York Times food section ran a follow-up review. The headline read, 5 stars. Endo brings Idome to the Lower East Side and a new voice to American sushi. Kevin read it in the quiet of his closed restaurant, the watch on his wrist catching the same light that fell on Jiro's framed note behind the counter.
It's done. He looked at the watch. Jiro, 2014. It had all been worth it. Now the real work begins.
3 weeks after the 5-star review, a thin man in civilian clothes stood across the street from Endo, clutching a wrinkled resume. He looked older, the arrogance scrubbed away by failure. Mark Nakamura, once the toast of Michelin, had lost his restaurant, his reputation, and his nerve. He'd trimmed his beard and chosen a new name, John Ito. He stared at the lantern above Endo's door, then squared his shoulders and crossed the street, the paper trembling slightly in his hand. Inside, a kitchen manager knocked on Kevin's office door and handed over a single sheet of paper. "Chef, there's a candidate for the prep line. Name's Ito. Here is his resume." Kevin took the resume. The photo was clean-shaven, but the eyes, the thin, angular face, it was Nakamura, unmistakably.
Mark Nakamura, applying to wash dishes in my kitchen. After the soy sauce, the grit, the jazz man, Jiro would say the rice must be pure. But this is a different kind of test. One of the heart. Send him in tomorrow at 10.
He placed the resume in his drawer, next to a framed photo of Jiro. The watch on his wrist kept its steady, ancient tick. The next morning, Mark Nakamura, clean-shaven and hollow-eyed, was escorted into Endo's private dining room. Kevin sat across the table, his posture unreadable.
Why do you want to work at Endo, Mr. Aitu?
I admire the precision, the way everything is done with purpose. I am ready to work, no matter what it takes.
Kevin's face remained smooth, as if he were evaluating a piece of fish, checking for freshness, for flaws.
Do you know how to make sherry?
Of course. The rice must be washed until the water runs clear, then cooked with the perfect ratio. I've done it 1,000 times. My hands remember.
Your hands remember squeezing grit onto my rice. But you don't know that I know.
Kevin let the silence hang, watching the confidence drain from Mark's eyes. Then he offered a small, polite smile.
Thank you for coming in, Mr. Ito. We'll be in touch.
Mark rose, his face a mask of relief and dread. He didn't know that the real judgment had already been passed 11 years before he sent that resume.
We're not hiring him. Send a polite decline.
The email was dispatched within the hour, a sterile, corporate rejection that gave no reason, no encouragement, only a door closed forever. Mark sat at his kitchen table, the phone clutched in both hands. The single light above him flickered, the apartment silent but for the hum of an old refrigerator. We regret to inform you that we have selected another candidate. We wish you the best in your future endeavors. He read it twice, the words blurring. The restaurant he'd once dominated had delivered this final anonymous blow. Beside his bowl, a pair of disposable chopsticks lay untouched. He picked them up, a habit from a lifetime of eating, then stopped. His hand shook. The sticks clattered onto the table, one rolling to the edge and dropping to the floor. An echo of a gesture he never understood. He never knew that Kevin Otieno had recognized him the moment the resume arrived. Never knew this rejection was the final act of a quiet war.
The silence was my review. Now the rice will speak forever.
At Endo, the counter was clean. Kevin held his watch to the light, the Jiro engraving sharp as a knife's edge. He set it down, and the second hand ticked once more, patient, eternal. Later that night, after the last dish was wiped and the kitchen fell silent, a young apprentice approached Kevin at the counter. He pointed at the watch and asked, "Chef, why do you always wear that? It looks old."
Because a man I respected taught me that time is the secret ingredient.
He turned the watch over, showing the Jiro 2014 engraving.
Jiro Ono. For 11 years, he taught me that the rice is everything. This watch reminds me that every grain counts.
The apprentice stared at the engraving, then back at Kevin, understanding settling in his eyes.
You will learn, but first, learn to wash the rice until the water runs clear.
Kevin strapped the watch back on and stood, the familiar weight, a comfort. The second hand swept past the engraving, a small, steady heartbeat in the quiet room. Endo was at peace. So was he.